Welcome to episode 65 of ReelQuick. I cannot believe we have hit 65. That's actually kind of crazy. It's a lot of episodes, a lot of grinding. But
one of the worst movies of the year.
Support.
65.
What?
65, one of the worst movies of the year.
Relax. That's not one of the worst movies of the year. It's okay. But we have our patron-sponsored movie review of the week, brought to you by our lovely patron, Tad and Bougie. The movie is Only the Brave, directed by Joe Kosinski, starring a lot of people. I honestly, watching this movie, I did not realize it was this stacked of a cast, including Josh Brolin, Miles Teller, Jeff Bridges, Jennifer Connelly, Taylor Kitsch, Alex Russell. Just a ton of really solid actors coming together for this really solid film. This was my first time watching it. Tyler, this was yours as well. Cam, your first time as well. And we also have the absence of Seth. Unfortunately, he just couldn't get around to watching it before
Big Hans Zimmer weekend.
Hans Zimmer weekend. He had a very busy week, so we thank him for joining our ReelTok episode last week that lasted almost 3 hours. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. I do want to point out my stupidity. I thought this was a war film, and I texted you guys that because Tyler texted us, "Wow, this happened not too far from me," and my response was, "What war happened in Arizona?" So I felt really stupid, and I thought that was a funny thing to just let you guys know. But members of the Granite Mountain Hotshots battle deadly wildfires to save an Arizona town. Again, directed by Joe Kosinski, who you guys know more recently for Top Gun Maverick. He also did the new Netflix film Spiderhead, as well as Tron Legacy and Oblivion, starring Tom Cruise. So let's just get right into it. Let's jump into our thoughts. Tyler, we all landed at a 4 out of 5. I feel like it's very rare that we all land on the exact same score for a movie. So I think our opinions here will align. And this isn't really a spoilery movie, so I don't know if we're going to go too heavy.
It's a true story.
It's a true story. Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you a light spoiler warning in case we really dive into that ending, obviously, which I think we will. So if you haven't seen Only the Brave, we have been giving you guys like a week's warning or so on the movies that we're going to be reviewing. So we're giving you guys time to catch up to make sure you watch this so you can be a part of the conversation as well. But let's just get right into it. Tyler, I believe you were the first of the three of us to watch it. So let me get your thoughts.
Yeah. So first off, this is coming out on Friday the 23rd. So next Wednesday, the 28th, is the 10-year anniversary of when this fire happened. And on the 30th, specifically, is the 10-year anniversary. So next Friday, a week from today, when you're listening to this, is a 10-year anniversary of what happens at the end of this movie. So it was, So are we allowed to just spoil?
Yeah. Okay. We're going to do spoilers for everyone listening.
So this is the deadliest firefighter incident that has ever happened since 9/11, which obviously is kind of like a curveball because it's not really like they didn't really die in like a structure fire for 9/11. It was more like with the cleanup and with the after effects and all that. So really kind of like with the most deadly mass death of firefighters fighting a large flame in America, and takes place about an hour away from me, an hour northwest, right outside of Scottsdale, Arizona, a really small town called Yarnell. And I think firefighters are such an underrepresented hero in movies. Like we get so many police movies, get a decent amount of like TV shows and movies about like nurses and doctors. We obviously have a ton of war movies, but I really feel like we get like nothing for firefighters. So it's really kind of a breath of fresh air to see something like this. I can absolutely see why folks in the producing world saw this movie and said, yeah, Joseph Kosinski would be great for Top Gun Maverick, because there is just so many parallels here of just both the action sequences as well as the camaraderie, the relationships. So much of it felt like Top Gun Maverick, and of course also having Miles Teller and Jennifer Connelly, who was in Top Gun Maverick. But this movie is super gripping and intense. Firefighting's a world I'm not really aware of. I never knew about what hotshot crews were, anything that all went into that. So it was definitely interesting to see. The cast is great. I think this movie benefits from being just an incredible story. So, when a movie is like this about such a tragedy, it's going to be relatively easy to make like a compelling narrative that's going to keep you sucked in the whole time. But even though this happened like an hour away from me and it's only 10 years ago, never heard of it whatsoever. So the whole transpiring of all the events was brand new to me. But just for my overall quick thoughts, I'll just leave it at that for now before we dive deeper into it after we all give our quick thoughts. But really, really enjoyed it. 7.7 out of 10 for me. Posted I was watching it, and then everyone's like, oh, have some tissues ready. I was like, I I mean, I guess could have assumed it was going to be a sad movie, but I just didn't know that's exactly where we were going. So definitely a very sad movie, kind of a day ruiner, but it's literally the perfect time to watch it, seeing as we're a week away from the 10-year anniversary of what is basically the deadliest firefighting incident for like a firefighters against a fire in American history. So yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. It's on Amazon Prime for people in the US and I guess for worldwide, but yeah, I'll leave it there for now. 7.7 out of 10 for 4 stars.
Yeah. And just so everyone listening, if you haven't seen the movie, just to kind of like highlight like the gravity of the situation. One of the final, most true stories end with like blurbs at the end, like just kind of going over like the future and what happened. One of those highlighted that this was the largest loss of firefighters since the September 11 attacks. So that kind of highlights the massive gravity of the situation and exactly, like the loss that perished that day. Cam, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm basically with Tyler. I had it in an 82 out of 100, I think, so 4 out of 5. Really, really loved it. Didn't cry at the end because I'm apparently soulless and I just never cry, but it did make me very emotional. It's a very sad story. I just think it took a while to get picked up, like especially if we're going into a little bit, like at the very start, it shows Josh Brolin's character, and he basically wants to make a call, and the hotshots come in, make a different call. And then like you kind of see the aftermath of what happens. It's the wrong call, that fairly basic story. Again, it's true story. So I'm not going to like call this thing basic because it's just like what happened. Right. But it kind of like, in my opinion, kind of brushed over that a little bit. And I kind of wish they went into it a little bit, but at the same time, I also thought the runtime was a little long. So I don't know how they would have done that. I'm not here to make movies, just here to critique them, apparently. But I really enjoyed this. The cast is stellar. I also said this in my Letterboxd review. I watched this on the beach. Wasn't necessarily in the mindset to like be watching a movie. So, that's probably on me a little bit. But the cast was stellar. Jeff Bridges and Josh Brolin are the same exact person, just 15 years apart. I'm pretty sure they just like cloned him and birthed him 15 years apart. Like they're the same exact person, I swear. I like Miles Teller in these. I don't know if I like him as like a badass, like in this or Top Gun Maverick, but I kind of do. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say before getting into it, but I kind of reiterate everything Tyler said. I just enjoyed this movie, and I do think it's a really great watch. I think this is really a dad watch. I feel like dads would absolutely adore this thing. Being a dad, I guess that makes me adore it as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty much exactly what you guys live. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I think this is a great watch, but I also think this is a very important watch. Like Tyler said, firefighters are super underrepresented in media. We, like Tyler said, obviously we have tons of police movies, but firefighters is one aspect that I don't know a ton about. And what I really like about this movie is that this movie could have easily just been an hour and a half firefight movie. But I like the fact that they took the time to flesh out every single one of our characters, give them like a little bit of a backstory, give us a little bit of connection to them so that when that final, third act unravels, you are right there. You feel a little more emotionally attached to these characters and the gravity of the situation and just how much they've worked for this. And obviously they go into these situations not knowing whether they're going to come out alive or not. So it just makes it all the more heartbreaking knowing how much time they put in to prepare for something like this, just for the outcome to be that. So I absolutely love that this movie really dives into these characters. It does feel like more of a character study as opposed to just this movie about people fighting fires. So that's one aspect that I really, really like. The ending was absolutely devastating. I had no idea that about this. I never heard of this incident, this massive firefight incident, which I don't know, maybe that's ignorant of me to say, but it's just nothing I've heard of. And obviously going into this movie,
I'm with you. I haven't heard of it either. I don't think they taught it in school or anything.
No, I mean, going into this movie, I thought it was a fucking war film. So obviously I didn't think anything of it. I was so lost. The poster, come on.
Firefighters outfits. Like, are you kidding me?
I don't know. Only the Brave sounds like a fucking war movie, man.
I guess.
I mean, listen, these guys go to war. That's what they do. They just fight fires, except
Yeah.
terrorists or whatever. But no, I really, really liked my time with this movie. It was absolutely devastating. It was a nice release of emotion that I needed last night. Like you guys said, I think the acting just across the board was fantastic. Miles Teller playing this recovering drug addict, basically, whose life was just kind of upside down. He had a daughter in the movie, and he's trying to turn his life around. I think everything from Jeff Bridges to Josh Brolin was just fantastic. The dynamic between Josh Brolin's character and Jennifer Connelly's character was really raw and really real and super emotional. But yeah, overall, we all went a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed my time with this movie. Where do we want to go? What do you guys? Is there anything specific of this movie you guys want to touch on?
I'm just gonna throw this out here. You know who I really like is the James Badge Dale, who I really don't know like basically anything he's in, but I just know he's like the villain of Iron Man 3, or like one of the bad guys in Iron Man 3. Yeah. So that's the only place I ever recognize him from. But I feel like every time I see him, I really like him.
Who was he in this?
Let me.
Was he the superintendent that was going to take over?
He's the yes, I think so. Yeah, he's the friend of Eric of Josh Brolin's character. Okay, yeah. I'm trying to find his name. Give me 1 second. Bad podcasting. Yeah, he's Jesse.
I have a lot I want to dive into for this, but one fun fact: if you look at the change posters on Letterboxd, this movie's had 4 different titles. There's Only the Brave, there's Granite Mountain, there's No Way Out, and there's Heroes of the Fire. So changed titles around a lot, but so for me, I thought that since I had no clue what this was going to be about, I thought when Miles Teller went to be lookout and then the fire changed directions, I thought he was going to die and the rest were going to survive, because I just thought that's where we're going. And then because basically gets like engulfed in flames and he has no way out and he's like tripping everywhere. But then of course, twist, he survives and all 19 other ones die, which just like there's got to just be horrendous survivor's guilt. Like when he walks into that gymnasium, and that's so brutal too that they didn't tell people who was alive and who was dead. All they knew is that there's 20 firefighters and one of them survived. So every single wife and family and daughter and son was just holding on to hope that their dad was the one that survived out of the 20 and would walk in that gym. And then of course Miles Teller walks in and you see his family relief, but every other wife and family just collapses in agony, and it was a brutal scene. But speaking of the brutal scenes, like I didn't cry either, and what I really wish this did, the whole final 20 minutes of the emotional moments, every scene in my opinion needed like 7 more seconds in each cut. I feel like every time there's an emotional beat, it didn't let us sit with it long enough, because like just when I was like starting to well up a bit with tears and get a little like short of breath, it would like cut to something else to give me relief and then go to something like, I just felt like it wasn't allowing us to sit with the emotion enough for me to get truly emotional. I wish that Joseph Kosinski in the editing phase was able to give us a little more time to sit with the emotion. But for me, the saddest part of this movie by far was the end credits, seeing that all these people were like 21 years old. That's just insane. Yeah. Like, because in the movie, all these actors look like, 30-ish or something, but then you see the real life and it's like, these are all people younger than all of us for the most part. And that's just so sad.
I will say, I also like, and I don't know if this is like an ignorant thing to say, I feel like this movie hits more knowing that it's like a true story. I feel like it hits me more than like if I would have seen this exact movie but knew it was completely fiction, So I don't know if I rate it higher because of that, but I was like, at the end of it, I was sitting there, I'm like, damn, that just is terrible to see. Like, especially like you said, all being 21 years old. It's just really heartbreaking to see. But
yeah, I'm looking at I just pulled up this list of fatalities now. There's 7 of them that are under the age of 23, which is absolutely cracked. 2 of them being 21, and then the character Miles Teller plays was also 21. Obviously, he's the sole survivor, but it's still crazy that 21-year-olds have way larger balls than I do to go into these situations.
Yeah, for sure. And like, so one thing I didn't love the emotional elements from Joseph Kosinski. I felt we could have sat with him a little longer. But one thing I did like about this that I don't love about Top Gun Maverick, and the original Top Gun for that matter, is that so Taylor Kitsch and Miles Teller are the classic, like when they first meet, they hate each other, they're mean to each other.
Yep.
That was resolved pretty quick and they became bros. Yeah. And I love that, because the original Top Gun especially annoys me, because it's like, you guys are literally like risking your lives together. Like you're gonna get over your little beefs when like the thick of it comes instead of just being asses to each other. So I was really happy that like they had their little moment where he like made fun of his wife. Like he's like called like, oh, your wife's sleeping around with a bunch of dudes, and the other guy was like, hey dude, that's just not cool. Like you can't bring family into this. Basically from then on they were like cool and good, and I was like, okay. I thought that was gonna be a really annoying plot point of them just like fighting all the time, but it got resolved quick. So I was very happy about that because I was so tired of that in the Top Gun movies.
I think this is I think this is a lot better than the first, or maybe not a lot better. I do think it's better than the first Top Gun. I don't think it's as good as the Top Gun Maverick. But you're exactly right that they're just extremely similar like not similar movies. I think this has a whole lot more weight than most both Top Guns, especially being a true story. But I do agree with you that they watch this movie and they're like, yeah, he'd be perfect for Top Gun Maverick. Like it's relatively similar-ish, I guess.
I really loved the bear symbol when Josh Brolin was telling the story of the bear on fire. That hit me super hard. But then I thought it was a little corny when they had the bear on fire running down, like when they actually showed it in the end, like after they died. I was like, that was a little cheap. Just because it was like a CGI animated bear. Like I loved the vivid image I painted in my head of a real bear on fire. But yeah, I don't know. That part I just didn't really love.
I kind of liked it.
Yeah, and that's fair. I thought it was a really good symbol. But yeah, like this movie is very heavy and very intense. Like I just keep going back to like Miles Teller's character. Like that's just gotta be such brutal survivor's guilt and like having to live with that. And like, oh yeah, the other thing that I like really didn't like about this movie that kind of pushes it back from a 4.5 or 5, which I wouldn't say I really don't like it, but this movie just slaps you across the face with foreshadowing every single scene. Like it's like, hey guys, my band's playing a concert this weekend. You all gonna come? They're like, oh yeah, you're gonna buy us drinks? Yeah, sure, we'll come. And then like classic Josh Brolin being like, this is my last fire. We're gonna start a family after this. Miles Teller being like, oh, I'm gonna be done being a forest fire guy. Like it was just over and over where they just kept
and like those are the kind of things
foreshadowing.
Those are the kind of things. Sorry, I have 2 minutes. That like don't really you don't know if they're true, right? So it kind of feels like something that they added in just to make the movie more impactful, which I'm not saying it's like a bad thing, but you're right about it. It is a lot of foreshadowing and such.
And we kind of see also the kind of what causes them to all end up dying is that Joseph Brolin is the superintendent. He makes a call to switch positions from where they are. And you kind of see that throughout the movie that he's willing to take risks and make a bold call if he thinks it's going to pay off. So one thing I was just reading about this after the movie, that in real life, they did do that where like they kind of mysteriously shifted positions from where they were to moving somewhere else. And no one still knows why in the investigations, like why they decided to move from the mountain the way they were to where they ended up dying. And the movie, what I kind of like is they didn't try and guess. They kind of just, Josh Brolin's like, no, we got to move over here. And they're like, okay, let's do it. And because that's kind of like one of the, not controversies, but one of the things like in the real world aspect where it's like no one really knows why they moved from where they were to the dangerous area. Like, was he just making a great hall, or was his head not in the right spot, or I don't know. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing because they ended up dying there.
That feels like the controversy around Captain Phillips and Sully, where like Captain Phillips and Sully both make a bold decision, and everyone's kind of like pondering, why did you make this decision in this exact moment? And the movies, just like Only the Brave, they never tried to give us an explanation, because
Sully, I think, does, if I remember correctly. They're in the courtroom or whatever, and they're like, the simulation does this, whatever, and he's like, well, the simulation isn't out there like making this human decision or whatever. Yeah, but I see what you're saying. I do see what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's just like an easy workaround. Like, don't highlight it in the movie because that'll just add to the controversy. Like, you want people to look at the story the way everyone outside is looking at the story, which is, why did Josh Brolin's character make this decision? Or not even character, why did the guy Josh Brolin is playing make this decision in that moment? That's just something that like you'll never know the answer to because he's the only one that probably knows the answer to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just the last thing I have for a comment is like just to add to the emotional gravity and just how brutal this is. Like, they were in fire like retardant. They're like packs that you saw them train throughout the movie to protect them from the flames. So they didn't die from being burned alive. They died from being cooked at 2,000 plus degrees Fahrenheit over minutes and hours long. That's just so beyond brutal to think of, and it's just so crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and then even again with the foreshadowing, they obviously did the training course at the beginning of the movie where like Josh Brolin was going around like, it's going to feel like the apocalypse is right on top of you while these guys are like underneath these like bags. And I was like, all right, I'm going to see that another time in this movie. But yeah, that's about all I have. Do you guys have any other plot points you want to run through?
Nope, I got nothing.
All right, one of our
back
faster reviews. So we apologize for that, but it's okay. We touched on all the highlights. We've also just been recording for 4.5 hours straight today, so yeah, we got to go sleep or something. But thank you all for tuning in to ReelQuick episode 65, our review of Only the Brave. Shout out our patron Tad and Bougie for the recommendation. We will wrap up there. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next week.